Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Divinity Connecting the Dots, where we connect the dots on issues pertaining to public health and planetary health and all other topics in the middle. Today, we have a very special panel of guests. We will be talking about a really interesting concept called fractal entrepreneurship, and we will also see through an amazing enterprise, all based on whole food plant-based, how that fractal entrepreneurship concept is being put into action. We have two amazing guests. We will begin soon, and here's a little introduction about them. What's fractal entrepreneurship got to do with veganism? Welcome, Radha. Welcome, Dr. Achyuthan Eswar. I'm so glad that we're able to have you on this show. Thank you so much for taking time. It's a little late where you guys are at. You're both tuning in from Bengaluru in southern India. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Nivi. It's lovely to be here with you.
Great. Okay, so let's dive right in, and we will start with Radha. And full disclosure, our panel is that of a unique mother and son, both of them individual entrepreneurs in their own right, and running two different set of enterprises. Radha, tell us about your venture, and we're so curious to know about fractal entrepreneurship. I've never heard of this concept before.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nivi. We see fractals in nature, in leaves, in flowers, in trees, maybe even on your skin. Every cell is repeated again and again like fractals. And that is a concept that really caught on. And I developed a model to incubate social entrepreneurs. I encourage a literate person to take on several people from disadvantaged background. All of them work as entrepreneurs, co-entrepreneurs, and the literate person helps the people from the poorer background come up in speed, so to say. So in just one lifetime, they become prosperous. But they don't just do a business that is only for money, but they do conduct business activities to promote sustainable and ecologically and socially conscious activities within a venture. So one small unit of business is created, which is then replicated many times over, and that is how scaling happens. And like a hockey stick, suddenly there would be an exponential growth of the venture which is created on this basis. And all over the country, right now I'm focusing on India, all over the country these businesses will sprout like fractals in nature. So that is why we call this model a fractal entrepreneurship model.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm going to pull up on screen the definition of fractal entrepreneurship. So it's you mentioned it's inspired by how fractals function in nature. The fractal model is a new kind of innovative social entrepreneurship model that exponentially impacts society and the environment positively. So that's just like really amazing. And you just gave an example that when we look at our skin, when we look at our cells, there's a multiplicity of fractals. If you were to explain this concept to a complete newbie, to maybe somebody, a younger person, how would you describe it in a very simple kind of a way?
So I would take the leaf of a carrot and show the small child. And it is so interesting, the child will immediately understand because there is a small Y in the smallest segment of the leaf. And that Y gets repeated again and again. It scales, and finally the whole leaf is also a Y. So how do you take a design and multiply it like the fern that you see on the screen right now? Each of those little parts of the leaf is also shaped very similar to the large leaf that you see. So that is what it's an innovation in nature. Nature evolves and grows using this fractal principle everywhere, wherever you see it.
Right.
You see it in the way a river meanders, in the way lightning comes out, in the way roots go into the soil, everywhere. It astounded me when I came across this concept. I said, my
Sure.
God, this
And
is the power of exponentially growing something. And I
right.
came across this as a social movement as well in Africa. They use this concept to quickly tell groups the goodness that they want to spread everywhere. A small concept is created and then copy pasted very quickly.
Right. So it's almost like scaling up, but
That's right.
using the smallest unit that first came together and replicating it so that you create exponential growth. All
That
right.
is true.
Okay. And Radha, your journey didn't stop here. You started this incubator, you wrote a book. And,
That's right.
obviously, we don't have time to get into the details of the book today, but you've written about, the book. Um, Chanakya or Kautilya, was one of the major leaders and political ministers and one of the medieval Indian empires. Just so our viewers understand that context. Um, okay, so Fractal Entrepreneurship Incubator was launched. Um, how were you eating and living, and how was your lifestyle at the time? Were you a vegan yet, or how were you living?
I didn't start out to be a vegan when I started this company. I was a very conscious person who was going after what is the right way of living, So, very deep into yoga, meditation, organic foods, and eating right, fasting, and learning to take care of the mind and body. But I had not yet touched the another point of healthy eating. That happened when my son became a student of naturopathy, and he opened our eyes to veganism, and it just caught fire.
Okay, so now I'm going to toss the ball to Achyuthan. Achyuthan, share with us. So your mom's running the Fractal Entrepreneurship Incubator. And so you have a really inspiring mom. She's an author. She's running around doing all of these things. She's also fasting. She's observing a really healthy lifestyle. But your family are vegetarians. So give us the backstory on how whole food, plant-based entered your life.
Absolutely, Nivi. So we've grown up vegetarian all our lives. I have never eaten meat or fish, knowingly at least. But when my friends asked me in school, "Oh, why do you drink milk? That doesn't come from plants. You're supposed to be vegetarian. That's not a vegetable." So I tell them, I don't know. I'm vegetarian. I've been doing it all my life. This is part of my diet. So we never really questioned it until I went to study yoga and naturopathy. And in my third year, yoga and naturopathy to become a doctor, a naturopathic physician. In my third year of college, I watched the documentary Earthlings. That was a turning point in my life. So I've grown up with the concept of ahimsa, morality, something that we have practiced consciously as a family. So our Guru Vedatri Maharishi, he's coined this very simple way to understand morality that we were taught by my father and my mother when we were kids, right? You live life without harming yourself or others, physically or mentally, now or in the future. So this was the definition that we'd run through our heads every time we wanted to take a decision. And when I watched that documentary, when I watched Earthlings, I cried. I was one of the few times I've cried through my entire college life. I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, I got up and decided, okay, this is it. I'm not going to consume dairy products anymore. And it was not something that was easy and simple for me to do because I've grown up eating curd rice at every meal. I'd come back home in the evenings, and a cup of curds with 6 spoons of sugar was my go to snack every day of my 3 years of college until that point. I have traveled 60 kilometers in a local bus and 60 kilometers back because I wanted to buy paneer or cottage cheese from one specific shop. And the 60 kilometers through the mountains, so the really bad roads, but half a day of journey just to buy cheese. But I felt it was worth it because I loved it. But then after watching Earthlings, I completely changed my mind. I decided to stop consuming dairy. And I told my parents about it. I told my family about it. We watched it together. And a couple of years later, my grandparents fell sick. My grandmother had been diabetic for 30 years. My grandfather had been hypertensive for an equal amount of time. And one day, my mother calls me and says, "Your grandfather has just suddenly started vomiting blood. What do we do?" And I got scared thinking of all the things that could be going wrong. I said, "Rush into a hospital, please check what the doctor says." So he was diagnosed with internal bleeding in the stomach, a side effect of an antihypertensive medication that he had been taking for 30 years. So they sent him back home, reduced the dosage, changed his medications a bit. Vomiting stopped in a day, but 1 week later, it was back to the hospital, back home. He kept doing these trips up and down. And one day he got so fed up after 3 weeks, he called me and he said, "Look, I'm fed up of this. Either give me a permanent solution or let me die in peace." And at that point, we sent him and my grandmother to a yoga and naturopathy hospital, where under the guidance of Dr. Subramaniam there, they changed their diets completely. They adopted a whole food plant-based diet, started practicing yoga every day, and in 10 days' time, the medications reduced by 90%, sugar levels back to normal from 300 down to 140, BP back to normal, 180 down to 100. They lost 10 kgs of weight, came back home completely transformed. And my relatives thought it was a miracle. But I told them, "Look, this is science. This is exactly what happens when you eat a healthier, more compassionate diet." So I told my parents, we call them Tata and Pati, my grandparents. So Tata and Pati have come back home. They need to continue eating healthy. You can't let them go back to their old diet. So we cook separately for them and we'd eat normal food until I found a study published in 1961 where researchers in India, in South India, and Madras, found that 100% of Indians by age 20 already have the starting stages of heart disease. Children by age 10, 95% have the starting stages of heart disease. So for us as a family, it was no longer a question of waiting until our sugar levels started going up. It was about how to reverse the heart disease we probably already have.
Right.
And looked up Dr. Dean Ornish's work, got connected with Dr. Michael Greger, Colin Campbell, Dr. Esselstyn, and just implemented all of those research findings in our personal diets at home. And that's how we turned vegan as a family and adopted a whole food plant-based diet.
Right. Okay. So we've heard this, about this massive change, this epiphany that you experienced, Achyuthan, in school while studying to be a doctor, a naturopathic physician, and you watched Earthlings. Obviously, Earthling Ed has had a huge impact worldwide, and he's just, released a book and he's been on a book tour and so on. And he's truly inspirational. So, you changed your value system from being an ethical vegetarian, somebody who believed in ahimsa, and overnight decided to ditch dairy. And your family followed suit. Now, I want to ask Mom, Radha, that when your young son comes to you and says, "Watch this documentary, we shouldn't be eating our favorite ingredient in so many different dishes and so on, like paneer and milk and ghee especially." What did you make of it? What was your reaction? What did you think? What went in your heart, in your mind at that point in time?
Uh, we follow ahimsa in every way. So I hate to even kill a cockroach, and I shoo away a mosquito. So when he showed us these documentaries, it was actually I felt very bad because in spite of following ahimsa, certain things, because they were imbibed in us from childhood, we've gotten used to having milk, used to having paneer and the rest of the dairy products. It did not register in our minds that we were probably doing something which was not all right. And we have so many mythical stories as well about Krishna, and so many stories that made it okay to have milk. But we didn't know how this milk was coming to us. It wasn't like these ancient times when they took care of their animals better. Here were farms, and those farms were doing horrible things to animals. It was a shock. And the second shock was to see that this was actually not healthy. I had by then, 40 or plus years of age. I had had dairy, consumed dairy, and I had probably actually made my body weaker in the process. And I came to realize this when I got cancer those days. Uh, so I really attribute it to the amount of dairy that went in. Milk flowed through our homes. Every day we would make yogurt, which you would have to cut with a knife. That is how we are. uh, we are fond of having curds that are really thick and nice. So we just stopped after that. We didn't stop, we just stopped. We advocated it to everybody who was near and dear to us. And Fractal Entrepreneurship, of course, had to adopt it very, very sincerely. Just Sampoorna Ahara has lifted 40 people out of poverty, and each one of them is given food from Sampoorna Ahara, and thereby made to understand how precious their health is, and how important it is that they have the right concept towards food, what they could eat and what they should not be eating.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that, Radha. You've captured so many different angles. I'm going to break it down for
Hmm.
our
Hmm.
viewers. So Achyuthan comes to you and shares with you that, hey, mom, we're not going to have dairy anymore. And he
Hmm.
also educates you and the rest of the family, shows you all the documentaries. You guys are curious, you're open, you watch the whole thing, you're able to differentiate
Hmm.
between how dairy industry started and how it might have been in the ancient or the medieval times long gone past, and now how industrialized and how basically like a factory farm sort of a situation we have, not just in other parts of the world, but also in India increasingly, because the demand for dairy products have increased so much and discretionary incomes have grown and people have more to spend. And somewhere we believe in the South Asian culture that consuming dairy, having 100% pure desi ghee available at home is a sign of, or a symbol of, that we've arrived, you know, and that being a little heavy, being plump or whatever might actually be a sign of us coming from,
Prosperity.
it's a sign of prosperity. There you have it. Absolutely. Right. And so you were able to overcome and challenge in your own heart, in your own mind, a lot of this societal conditioning that, millions of us in within the South Asian culture are sort of, raised with. Now I'm going to stop there and sort of step back and look at the whole picture. You are an entrepreneur, you've started the Fractal Entrepreneurship Incubator, you're already implementing it, with the urban Mali. Mali, for our viewers, is a gardener, right? So it's the
That's right.
urban gardener, urban Mali project that you worked with. You also mentioned Sampoorna Ahara, okay? And we know that Achyuthan is the CEO, he's the founder of Sampoorna Ahara. And I just want you to backpedal a little bit for our viewers and share, before we talk about Sampoorna Ahara, and Achyuthan will do that for us and get into the details. But rather, how did you start embedding the idea of veganism and whole food plant-based in the fractal entrepreneurship model? How did it impact your professional life? Is what I would love to know.
It was a wonderful journey, really, because my health improved massively. I had DUB and I got out of it thanks to Achyuthan. And that was when I took it up very, very seriously. And when I was having my food at home, my kids would like the food that I was having, and they changed over in no time at all. My daughter got over her PCOD complaint thanks to this. And in no time, we were talking to everyone about it because we could see that this was the right thing to do, the healthiest way to eat food. And one thing about my family is that we seek uh, directions that are healthy for the mind and body and for society and environment. We are very, very passionate about it. So this was just one other concept. My children have been homeschooled. We've gone against the usual, societal reasoning for doing things. I married my husband in ways by which we uh, just opposed any ritual that was not meaningful, took up the rituals that were meaningful. So this too for us was something that we just took like duck to water, because that sounded so nice and so correct, so important, really. That would help the planet better. Helping the planet was a very big passion that all of us shared. So yes, we faced a lot of hardship, a lot of opposition, a lot of questioning, but we are used to that. Because we feel very confident that when you take up healthier ways of doing things, there would be opposition, but we, in a very non-violent manner, we stick to our principles, and we do talk to people and convince them that maybe this is something they should also look into.
Right.
So,
Yes. Well,
and the thing that we did was we experimented so much to mimic the tastes of mainstream food, milk or yogurt, or any numbers of dishes made with yogurt or paneer. Achyutan and his sisters and I and his father, we would innovate on these, and we would throw out a feast for people. They will never know that yogurt was not used for the curd rice, or that is not paneer, but tofu marinated so many times over to mimic the exact taste of what they used to. So that is how we pulled people into our ways of thinking. So people knew that whenever they were bored or not feeling good, there would be a feast at home. They could come and have food. And that's how all the entrepreneurs came into liking it. They ate this food. I kept cooking. I would cook myself as well, for gardeners, for farmers, wherever I went, where we used to conduct workshops in villages. See, veganism is spreading amongst the literate people, but what about poor people? Poor people who, have no means of, no time to analyze how things are going, and how what they need to do in order to lead ecologically correct lives. So there are somebody has to work in that sphere also, isn't it? I think fractal entrepreneurship is doing that. It is opening up the minds of people from all sectors of society.
right. Well, thank you for sharing that in such great detail, Radha. You mentioned that you would just cook and have people experience the delights and the deliciousness and the abundance of eating only plants, and that you could enjoy, healthy meals without necessarily tormenting another sentient being. So, um, and that you incorporated that in the fractal entrepreneurship incubator as well. Now, why do you insist on incubates and entrepreneurs incubated by you to be whole food, plant based as well? Like, do you make that a precondition, or do you you attract people who are entrepreneurs who are not vegan yet, but you say that during the course of your incubation and teaching the model that they will have to turn whole food plant based? Like, tell me, how does that work? How does that conversation
Yes.
go?
So there are these initial interviews that are conducted to see who wants to be incubated by us, and we do declare at that time that we follow veganism and we eat whole food plant-based diet, because I believe that entrepreneurs, especially fractal entrepreneurs, have to be extra healthy because they are bootstrapping, they are hard-working entrepreneurs, they have to work against the tide, they have to fight wars that regular entrepreneurs don't fight. And it's not just selling or selling a product or service that is environmentally friendly. It's also pulling many poor people out of poverty and infusing the spirit of entrepreneurship in them. That is very hard. It takes a lot of effort. Achyuthan will vouch for that. So they have to be strong mentally and physically. So anything that does not help uh, to give you that health is out of fractal entrepreneurship. It's like an army training. Here, people have to follow rigorous exercises for the mind and body, and they have to eat a vegan, whole food, plant-based diet.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and for your amazing efforts at starting the fractal entrepreneurship model, changing its course midway after changing your own personal nutrition paradigm, at the behest of your son Achyuthan, who's also with us today. We're talking about fractal entrepreneurship and what's it got to do with veganism. So I'm gonna uh, shift to talking about this great case study that you guys have on your hands now, which is Achyuthan's enterprise, Sampoorna Ahara. And Achyuthan, my question to you is, as a doctor, you know, uh, and when you graduated from medical school, you're now a naturopathic physician. You watched Earthlings. You and your family have benefited from eating a whole food plant-based diet. One would assume that you would get into practice and open a clinic, but you did something totally different. So tell us about what you did. What did you start?
Sure, Nivi. In fact, that's how it started originally. I graduated, and 3 months after my graduation, a group of friends and I decided to just take a break and travel across India to see what the other doctors are doing. Because there was one problem in yoga naturopathy hospitals and other holistic health hospitals that was not being addressed sufficiently. In almost every hospital I visited across the country, we saw patients who were not there for the first time, right? So there would be patients who were there for the third time, fourth time, it was their fifth visit. They had one annual routine of coming for a detox session there. I met a couple who had been to the same hospital 17 years in a row. They had their 14-year-old son with them. And when I asked them, guys, if this is working for you, why are you back here with the same issues? And if this is not working for you, what are you doing back here? So they said, look, we visit the hospital once a year. We lose 10 kgs of weight each. And then we go back home. We put on 15 kgs of weight and we're back the next year. So that's a net 5 kg increase for the last 17 years. And that's why we're the way we are today. And this was happening everywhere. People would go get healthy, go back home, fall sick, and repeat, repeat, repeat. But we found that the hospitals that encouraged patients to learn, the centers that had classes every day, courses, sessions where they taught patients, this is the science, this is the art, this is how you do it, this is why you do it, this is what you do. Those hospitals, the patients didn't come back for the same issues. So we were inspired by that, and I started a clinic. I took one room in my parents' office, and we started seeing patients. With every patient, until that point, I had spent 15, maximum 20 minutes, because that's all the hospitals would allow. If you spend more than 20 minutes with a patient, the hospital admin will come knocking, right? Because there are so many patients to see. So when I graduated, when I started my own clinic, I spent 3 to 3.5 hours with each and every patient, just talking through them through this entire journey. Because if, let's say, I get a patient with diabetes and I tell them, okay, you have diabetes, here's what the science says. This is all you need to do. By the way, from today onwards, start exercising, start relaxing mentally, and reduce your consumption or stop eating meat, fish, eggs, dairy products like milk, curd, cheese, yogurt, paneer, butter, buttermilk, and ghee. Also, don't use oil, white rice, sugar, jaggery, maida, rava, semia, and alcohol. I'm not going to see that patient again, right? But if I spend 3 hours talking to them about the why,
Yes.
then it clicks, like the switch flips, and it's easy for people to start following that. But within a few months, I quickly realized this is not a sustainable option. So I went to my parents and I told them, I want a way by which we can take this knowledge, we can take this science and spread it to the maximum number of people, create as big an impact as possible, because that's not going to happen with me sitting here in this consultation room. So we started a website called nutritionscience.in, where
Okay.
we train people in plant-based nutrition. We have over there, so we put up a free course first with over 200 whole food plant-based recipes, which are mostly traditional Indian recipes, which people could just come, sign up, learn, and discover cooking at home. Then we had course called the Plant-Based Diet Masterclass, where we trained them in disease prevention and reversal. So we had people coming back and telling us, Doctor, I've reversed my diabetes, I've reversed hypertension, I used to have PCOS and now I have a baby, I've lost weight, and my cancer treatment is so much easier to do than I thought it would be. We've had patients drop their sugar levels, drop their BP, fantastic results. But in the end, they would all come back and ask us the same thing. See, we understand this, doctor. We're doing this at home, doing it every day. We're putting in the effort, we're putting in the work. But is there anyone who can also cook this food and deliver it to our home? Life would be so easy. And that's what led to the idea of Sampoorna Ahara. The Sampoorna Ahara literally translates to whole foods in English. And we decided to start this because we realized there is an urgent need in the food industry for healthy food. Right? I took up my phone, I looked up all of the online food ordering apps, and I found less than 0.5% of dishes that I could actually order and eat. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't eat anything off the menu at a restaurant. I had to speak to the waiter, speak to the chef, convince them to cook for me, stuff like that. So we started Sampoorna Ahara, and I'm happy to share that I've reached, as a team, we have reached so many more people, tens of thousands of more people through our work at Sampoorna Ahara than I ever did as a single physician in a consultation room. So I believe that our medical system today, not just in India, but throughout the world, is designed for emergencies, is designed for genetic disorders, is designed for diseases where drugs and surgery are the primary options. And they're fantastic for that. You have an accident, you go to a hospital, your life might get saved. You have a heart attack, go to a hospital, they may be able to save your life. They have everything they need. There are doctors, nurses, there's operation theaters, surgical equipments, anesthesia, there's drugs, there's recovery wards, the admin section. Everything is perfectly designed for that. But if you go to the same hospital and you tell them, I have diabetes, how do I reverse it? They're going to be at a loss because they don't have a system for it. The doctor has 15 minutes to speak with you. The dietitian or nutritionist has half an hour to an hour to speak with you. Then you go back home, you have all your family members breathing down your neck. You go out with your friends, there's nothing to eat. Then you go back to the hospital after a month. It's again just those 15 minutes. So there was no system where people could successfully reverse disease. So we've created that system. That's been our goal. To put it shortly, we wanted to make healthy eating easier. It should not be as difficult as going online, doing your research, reading thousands of research papers, and finally figuring out what to do, creating your own recipes like we did. Like for 2 years, I didn't know that dairy alternatives were already, someone else had discovered it. We didn't know about it. I mean, this was the time before the time when we Googled everything, right? If we wanted something, we'll ask our parents or grandparents or our friends. But in this case, we were all in the soup together. So we had to figure out, how do you make this almond milk at home? So it should not be as difficult as that. It should be as simple as the click of a button, and you should be able to reverse diabetes at home comfortably, conveniently, and have all the support you need, um, without having to lift too many fingers, except for exercise, of course. So that was our dream, and that's how Sampoorna Ahara started.
Well, thank you so much. As always, both of you, I ask you something and you pack a punch, and then I'm like, all right, he said this and she said this, and there are just so many insights. And guys, I'm finding it hard to sort of, catch up with all of the dots that you're connecting. No puns intended. But so it's all started with looking at nature, looking at simple designs, and Radha said, if nature can exponentially and perfectly replicate and create such beauty that has both art and science embedded in it, then why not do this? And she started Fractal Entrepreneurship Incubator. Now, you guys go vegan, courtesy Earthling Ed, and then you end up receiving all these personal benefits, and then your journey starts as a naturopathic physician, and Achyuthan, you identify this critical insight that the system is created for trauma and emergency care. It is not created for sustainable healthy living. So you actually get incubated by the fractal entrepreneurship model. So I'm once again going to do a little bit of a backtrack and pull up this image for our viewers about applying this fractal model to the spread of veganism. We're talking about what fractal entrepreneurship has got to do with veganism. So Achyuthan, my question to you is that you've been trained in the art and the science of fractal entrepreneurship. Now, how are you operationalizing that and embedding that in Sampoorna Ahara, in creating this parallel, much needed system in India and indeed the rest of the world that Sampoorna Ahara's vision seeks to serve? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, Nivi. So let me first take an example that most viewers of your channel may be familiar with, right? An animal rights organization or an activism group. How do they spread? You have one person, you have 5 people, 10 people who organize one protest or one cube or one event where they stand on the street and talk to a few hundred people. And then the next event, a few more people join. The next event, a few more joins. When it gets too big, there are 2 groups across the city. When it gets even bigger, there are 25 groups, and then there's a nearby city involved. But it's always just this one small group of people, right? It's either Earthling Egg with 5 people, or it's it's 10 people standing around the cube and 2 people explaining it outside. But that's it. These small, tiny groups of people create such a huge impact when they work together, when there are processes set, when there are trainings conducted, when there is a blueprint that you can follow to create a bigger impact in the minds of people, then small groups of people working together but individually across space, across different regions, can together create a massive impact with very little resources. And that's the key point, because anything in the world today limited by the resources that you have. So how do you take limited resources and create maximum impact? This is what we found most beneficial while using the fractal entrepreneurship system to set up Sampoorna Ahara. So we have, like my mother described, um, like that single cell of a leaf that produces energy for the entire plant, all those cells working together, we're creating that single cell of a whole food plant-based support system. Like we have a cloud kitchen where all of the processes have been documented and set into a blueprint where anyone who has not even had formal training in cooking or formal or gone to cooking school before can walk in and learn to become a complete whole food plant-based chef in a matter of weeks. They don't need to do the science, they don't need to do the research rather, because it's already done and set into processes. Right? And there are standardizations that we've done, a standardization of processes, of protocols, cooking times, cooking temperatures. There are specific amounts of ingredients used for each individual dish. Like, for example, every one of our meals follows Dr. Michael Greger's daily dozen checklist. So if you eat 2 meals a day, then you are going to check off all of those checklist boxes except for water and exercise, right? So that makes it easy for someone to stay healthy, and it makes it easy for someone to cook because you have this set of foods and you just take this exact measurement of this particular vegetable. You take this many spoons of this spice, mix it together, cook it at this temperature for this much time with this much humidity, and you're going to have a perfect dish every single time. So that standardization really helped us to create one blueprint for one pilot kitchen, which is 100% whole food plant-based kitchen, run by people from the bottom of pyramid, people, many people who have not even worked as a cook before, but have come and learned to become fantastic cooks, churning out dishes that taste the same and taste fantastic every single time, and can work on their own without the need for a high level expert to be supervising them all the time. Now we plan to take that blueprint for one pilot kitchen and spread it across the country and across the world, because that's going to be so much, so easy, because it's such a small, easily workable, sustainable, self-sustainable unit, supplying food to one small area near.
Right. And then operationalizing this with such meticulous care, right? You've created the blueprint. It's that small leaf or one part of the leaf that Radha was mentioning before. And now all you've got to do is scale it up, copy and paste, and create more and more replications, exponential growth, on a standardized scale with standardized formulations, ensuring that the people who've inspired you, like Dr. Michael Greger, the checklists that they've created, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're basically taking that template and you're manifesting it in all the meals that you're creating. This is brilliant, Achyuthan and Radha. And this is, once again, I just want to bring it up on screen for our viewers to see. This is basically fractal entrepreneurship in action. And this is how, mother and son duo of Radha Eswar and Achyuthan Eswar are actually turning around this entire system and creating a parallel system of their own. So, Achyuthan, my next question to you is, and potentially even for Radha, and I guess this is where both of your companies overlap, is when you're out in the market looking for other entrepreneurs that can receive this blueprint with the same level of devotion, commitment, understanding of what whole food plant based is, and that they can be funneled into the incubator that Radha has created, such that Sampoorna Ahara can receive incubated multiples of the blueprint that you've created. Am I following this right? Is this how you guys are overlapping, your work with each other, and moms sort of taking on entrepreneurs and hopefully ensuring that they can create a blueprint for you, or is there a different model? So enlighten us.
Most of it is like you said. I will explain it as it is happening on the ground. A fractal community is one that is created of different fractal entrepreneurs who are helping each other. So Achyuthan is into every other venture that gets incubated, and his masterclass is generously shared amongst these other entrepreneurs and their co-entrepreneurs as well. He would conduct workshops. We would give fees for the people who come there. We would explain why they have to eat this way, and we would request the other fractal entrepreneurs to keep an eagle eye over everybody to ensure that they are having this kind of food. And we have Achyuthan and Sampoorna Ahara is extremely generous. They would give discounts or they would give free meals. The interest is to ensure that the concept is understood. So there
Okay.
is nobody paying monies for this. He does it on his own free will and interest, and that is how we are able to ensure that within the blueprint of, say, Urban Mali Network, it is required that every entrepreneur and co-entrepreneur eats this kind of food. So that is the part that comes from Sampoorna Ahara. And in turn, Urban Mali Network, which is actually a landscaping company, grows microgreens for Sampoorna Ahara. So it has become a small business for Urban Mali Network. Farm Fresh Bangalore, which is another venture run by Nalini Murthy, she could have easily sold things like paneer and organic stuff, right? Milk and everything. But no, Farm Fresh Bangalore very strictly deals with only vegan whole food ingredients. If the business is a little less because of that, that is no problem for Nalini. So that is the vigor with which every fractal venture takes up vegan concepts and ensures that it is spreading this idea far and wide.
I'm just floored with what you guys are doing and what you're creating. So, all right, again, I'm just going to summarize for myself and for our
Mhm.
viewers. There's the Fractal Entrepreneurship Incubator. There are multiple ventures, fractal ventures, like Farm Fresh in Bengaluru in India. There's the Urban Mali Network or the Urban Gardener Network. They grow microgreens and all of that. Again, are they based in Bengaluru as well in
Right
India?
now, yes.
All right. And then there's Sampoorna Ahara, which was the third fractal venture, which is again, run by Achyuthan and based in Bengaluru. All right. Now, all of these three are independently fractal ventures. So they're an individual part of that leaf on the fern that we saw. And coming together, they're also part of the larger fractal ecosystem that feed into each other. So the
That's right.
microgreens that are grown end up becoming suppliers to Sampoorna Ahara. When you're training new fractal entrepreneurs, they need to eat, they need to experience the goodness and the delights of whole food, plant-based. And you mentioned that entrepreneurs specifically need to be super healthy. They're superheroes. They have to wage all these wars. And so
Right.
that's where Sampurna Ahara's goodwill, kindness, generosity, and philanthropy really comes in and feeds those people so that they understand what is it that they're getting themselves into from a value system standpoint and also from a nutritional standpoint. And once again, Farm Fresh have chosen purpose over profit to
That's
ensure
right.
that their portfolio is reflective of the ethics of veganism and a whole food plant-based diet. This is fantastic, and it's starting to sound like the paradise that we need the entire world and our food system and our entrepreneurial system and our profit-based ventures and purpose-based ventures, all of them to be following. So in a way, both of you are creating a system that's worth scaling, worth emulating.
Very true. In fact, every incubatee who comes to us, who wishes to work in the food space
Right.
then becomes a subfractal within Sampoorna Ahara. So, in
Yes.
fact, we have three more entrepreneurs who are working with Achyuthan, who are also, having their own fractals, which are selling vegan whole food ingredients and food products. So
Right.
you have the bakery, and then you have the sweets confectionaries enterprise, and then you have the snacks enterprise. So if there is somebody who wants to make pickles and papads, we would direct them to Achyuthan as well. So the idea is to form this huge community that is supporting, each member is supporting one another, and we are very confident of what we are doing, and I can see the results, in amongst us. We are healthier, we are happier, more content, extremely purposeful.
Yes, exactly. And all of this during what's a global pandemic, and which
Oh
is
yes.
ever evolving, and it's so elusive. And I know Sampoorna Ahara has been doing some very specific work to ensure that those less fortunate amongst us are also helped. So Achyuthan, share with us, how have you been, not just running Sampoorna Ahara, but also uh, doing what should be corporate social responsibility, and you're sharing the gains with others as well. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, Nivi. So we are so fortunate to be in this ecosystem, to be as part of this community, that we've been able to create a much bigger impact during COVID-19 than we would have been able to otherwise. So we joined hands with Farm Fresh Bangalore, we joined hands with Urban Mali Network, and we had so many people come out to support us. They supported us financially. We had farmers just sending us bags of fruits and vegetables saying, let this go to someone who needs it. We identified areas in Bangalore where there are people in need, worked with local organizations that support them, and through them, we delivered more than 40,000 healing meals during the lockdowns that happened here in Bangalore to the vulnerable people who really needed it. There were elderly people who didn't have children to support them. There were single mothers with children who had lost their jobs because of the pandemic. There were children themselves. And as one of the organizations told us, it's not about the food that you're giving to this group of people today, but it's about the hope that all of this might end soon. So stick it out and survive. Without that hope, they might not. So I'm so grateful that we've been able to do this, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without this amazing community to support us.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you know, um, and about so for for many years, even before we started Sampoorna Ahara, we've been having awareness sessions in various kinds of different communities about plant-based nutrition. We've gone to villages, we've gone to urban, semi-urban areas, we've done corporate events, the whole rainbow spectrum of different kinds of events that we've done. And that has been the foundation of Sampoorna Ahara. It's been the foundation of this movement that we've built, where we finally started cooking and delivering food to people. And
Right.
and for people who come to us also, it's so much easier now to find everything that they want. Like there was this before COVID-19, there was this one point in time where all of us, so my mother, myself, and the Farm Fresh Bangalore Urban Mali founders were all in one building. We were having some meetings, and I was consulting a patient in one of the rooms. So she came to us and she said, she came to me and she said, I want to lose weight, I want to reverse these PCOS and diabetes. And we discussed about the history, we discussed about the treatment. Then we were just chatting a little after that, and she said, it'd be nice if we can. I got all these fantastic resources. I know what to do. I know how to do it. There are workshops. There's food. I can get all of this. It'd be nice, if I can also get some organic fruits and vegetables coming home, and I can cook this by myself. I said, sure, go straight, take a ride, speak with Nalini. She's there. She can help you out. I said, oh wow, okay. I also have this farm where I'm looking to grow some plants and grow some fruits and vegetables on my own. So, sure, take left. Then, okay, wow, okay. I've also had this dream where I want to start a business by myself and create a bigger impact. And sure, go straight. That was a fantastic moment that I always remember.
Right.
And yeah, just so grateful to be doing this together as a team to be able to create a bigger, more lasting impact to help to pull people out of poverty, to pull people out of disease, and help all of us together live a longer, happier, healthier life together.
Right. And as you mentioned, it's not about giving food to people. It's not about just that. It's about creating hope that
Absolutely.
the situation, whether it's the global pandemic, whether it's a diseased situation that they might be in, that it's going to pass, that there's a way out of it, and that we can reverse it, and that it's not just a pharmaceutical intervention or a surgical intervention that is going to be the solution for them, but the solution is right in front of us. It's mother nature, and it's just waiting for us to reconnect with her, and that is what both of you are doing, starting right with um, the heart of this movement, which is the whole concept we've discussed today of fractal entrepreneurship. And all credit to Radha for having identified this, for being connected to nature enough to be able to observe that this is how nature operates. Why can't we? Because after all, we're all part of nature too. And there's this myth and notion that human beings live with, that somehow we're separate from nature, that somehow we need to protect ourselves from nature, which is why we created all these infrastructures. And in doing so, we walked away from the source where we come from. So Radha, thank you so much for starting this amazing venture, because not just literally, also metaphorically, it stands for the human need to connect back and learn from the forces of Mother Nature. And for, thank you to you, Achyuthan, for actually proving that it works. This is not just a principle that should sit on, a placard or a vision that could be, enshrined in a book, but something that can, in reality, be mobilized to help people, to pull them out of whatever disadvantaged situation they might be in, and to actually create a system which doesn't exist at this point in time. And that makes you, a true doctor, because doctors first and foremost are healers, and you're healing people. We're coming to a close, of our conversation. I have a feeling we could go on, and I could spend hours talking to both of you. I do have one question, for both of you, and it's a more a future forward sort of a question. What do you think is the future of the whole food plant-based ecosystem in India? And I ask this because, Achitan, you mentioned that there's vegan alternatives. A lot of them are high fat, high sodium, high sugar. Just because they're made from plants doesn't mean they're any less processed. A whole food plant based oil free paradigm is a truly disease reversing therapeutic paradigm. While everyone talks about the future of vegan nutrition and the future of this and that and stem cell technology and lab cultured meat, and we know a lot of capital is going into those sorts of ventures, I would love to hear from you. What do you foresee is the future of whole food plant based oil free?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that question, Nimi. There is, if you look at vegan businesses worldwide, if you look at vegan funds worldwide, most of it is allocated to alternatives for animal foods, which is fantastic because you're reducing animal suffering and you're healing the planet at the same time. And it's much less unhealthy, significantly less unhealthy than animal food. So it's a fantastic first step forward. I believe that the next step forward should be to have a whole food, 100% whole food plant based alternatives available to every one of these. Whether you are currently a non-vegetarian, a vegetarian, or vegan, shifting to a whole food plant-based diet should be easy for you to do. And that's what we are driving ourselves towards at Sampoorna Ahara. So we have myths to dispel, like healthy food isn't tasty, right? That's something practically everyone thinks. But when you actually experience it for yourself, like when you eat a whole food plant based loaf of bread or a pizza or a cake or um, just some delicious food, and you think to yourself, oh wow, I can eat this every day, this is easy for me to do. When that switch clicks, when you realize that it's easy, then it's then you actually do it. There is this saying that the whole, and I've heard this said by so many times by so many people, the whole world will turn vegan when it's convenient to do so. That seems to be the key factor for a majority of people. And there are people like you and me and my mother and so many people watching the show who make the switch in our minds, and we consciously take a decision to live a more compassionate lifestyle. For a
Right.
majority of people, due to so many reasons, they haven't been able to do it so far. But when it becomes convenient, when every shop in your neighborhood, every online app only has vegan dairy, if it only has whole food plant-based milk that you can order, when if you want dairy milk, you have to travel for 100 miles and go to a farm and milk the cow yourself. That day, the whole world is going to turn vegan and turn whole food plant-based. So I believe that it's just a matter of time and energy and direction that we need to devote ourselves to creating this ecosystem, to creating the products and services that people are looking for, and to create the awareness to help people flip the switch to realize that this may not just be the right thing to do, but it's actually the easier thing to do for myself, for my family, for my loved ones, and for the planet, for the animals, practically the whole world in the long run. That
Absolutely.
happens, then there's going to be a revolution.
Yes, and thank you for being part of that revolution, ensuring that that revolution has a whole food, plant-based, oil-free dimension to it, such that we're not carried away in just one direction, and that there's actual therapeutic benefit for humans, for all sentient beings, and indeed for the planet. Thank you so much. We're talking to Radha Eswar and Dr. Achyuthan Eswar, tuning in to our episode of Divinity Connecting the Dots. Thank you so much, Radha and Achyuthan, to join us from all the way in India. It's been a pleasure talking
Absolutely.
to you.
And thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Nivi.
Nivi, for this
Such a
time with us
pleasure.
and for the opportunity to join hands and reach out and create a much bigger impact. It really means a lot. And thank you and Team Divinity for such fantastic, phenomenal work that you're doing, creating awareness and bringing you know millions of people literally together to ride this wave and create a massive change all over the world. It means a
Well,
lot.
thank you. You're very kind. And I'll see you on the flip side. Well, thank you to all our viewers who watched this and who will watch, once the show is recorded and it's all out. And we really, really encourage you to look at Sampoorna Ahara as well as Fractal Entrepreneurship Foundation and nutritionscience.in. If you have questions, please reach out to us. We would be happy to convey it to Dr. Achyuthan Eswar and to Radha Eswar. They're constantly looking for philanthropists, donors, investors to invest such that they can create more and more blueprints of these fractals and keep building and spreading the ecosystem for a whole food, plant based system for our lifestyle, for therapeutic, reversal of chronic illness. Please come forward and help. And in the meanwhile, we will be back next month with yet another episode of Divinity Connecting Dots. Thank you for watching.